Kyoto, 1,000 years ago. Night gathers around the imperial palace like a secret. The air is sharp with the scent of pine smoke and wet earth after rain. A line of courtiers, their robes painted in shades of moonlight, glide across the courtyard in complete silence. Lanterns sway on iron hooks, each one trembling as if uncertain of what it witnesses. In the great hall, the young emperor bows before his new bride, a union arranged long before either of them could speak. The ministers stand motionless, their faces serene, their minds calculating. Every smile hides an understanding. This is not a wedding of hearts. It is a treaty of power, sealed in silk and ritual. That night sets a pattern that will echo across the centuries. The dynasty that claims descent from the sun goddess will begin to turn inward, tightening its own lineage until the idea of purity becomes a cage. From the palaces of the Heian court to the strongholds of the Tokugawa shoguns, the same conviction endures, that stability depends on blood untouched by outsiders. In the glittering age of the Heian court, the emperor is a figure of divine presence, but limited command. Real authority belongs to the Fujiwara, the most sophisticated political family Japan has ever produced. They understand that in a society ruled by ceremony, power is not taken, it is inherited, one marriage at a time. Fujiwara no Michinaga, the family's greatest patriarch, perfects this strategy. He builds influence like a web of silk, invisible yet unbreakable, marrying his daughters to emperors and placing his grandsons on the throne. Each union is a quiet conquest. The palace at this time is a world of scent and sound. Floors sing softly underfoot, a defense against assassins and a lullaby for the sleepless. Incense from India mixes with the smoke of local sandalwood. By day, screens painted with mountains and cranes filter the sunlight. By night, oil lamps scatter gold across the walls. Every movement, from the folding of a fan to the writing of a poem, carries the weight of politics. Beneath the calm lies competition, a constant struggle to remain indispensable. When Emperor Ichijo marries Michinaga's daughter, Fujiwara no Shoshi, Kyoto celebrates for days. The city blooms with lanterns. Poets compose verses comparing her beauty to cherry blossoms, opening at midnight. But the meaning is deeper. Through his daughter, Michinaga rules without crown or title. From that day on, the emperor's decrees echo his father-in-law's will. The young ruler becomes a symbol of peace. Michinaga becomes its architect. In private, some whisper that the emperor himself has become ornamental, a relic preserved for ceremony. Years later, when Ichijo's son Go-Ichijo ascends the throne, he inherits not only the crown, but the invisible boundaries of his family's alliances. Another daughter of Michinaga enters the palace as consort, and the lines of loyalty twist tighter. The emperor's household is filled with elegance, poetry contests, music on summer nights, but beneath the beauty grows unease. Courtiers trade glances as messages pass quietly between households. Reports that should reach the emperor first are reviewed in another chamber. He signs decrees written by other hands, seals decisions he did not make. To resist would be scandalous, to comply, effortless. And so he drifts, a god in name, a prisoner in practice. When Emperor Go-Suzaku takes the throne, the pattern feels almost natural. Another bride from the same lineage, another union framed as divine harmony. The poets call it a moon reflecting upon itself, a symbol of purity and perfection. Yet perfection can be lifeless. The palace, though splendid, begins to resemble a still pond, beautiful but stagnant. Conversations repeat, policies repeat, even the ceremonies repeat with such precision that the participants could perform them blindfolded. Power remains balanced, but vitality ebbs away. The Fujiwara strategy has succeeded too well. The empire is safe and safely asleep. By the end of the 11th century, cracks appear in the marble surface. Retired Emperor Shirakawa, frustrated by his family's dependence on the Fujiwara, seeks to reclaim independence. His answer is to rule indirectly from the seclusion of a monastery and to engineer marriages that keep outsiders away. His son, Emperor Horikawa, weds within the imperial clan, a gesture meant to purify power once more. The wedding unfolds under clouds of incense, the chants of monks blending with the whisper of rain. It is intended as a break from the Fujiwara grip, yet it only proves how deeply the court has internalized the idea that safety lies in self-containment. Outside the palace walls, Japan is changing. Provincial warriors are rising. The great temples accumulate land and soldiers. But inside Kyoto's walls, time refuses to move. The courtiers still compose verses about dew on chrysanthemums while the provinces simmer in unrest. The elegance of the Heian world has turned brittle, like lacquer left too long in the sun. Centuries later, the stage shifts east to Edo, where the Tokugawa shoguns govern a unified Japan with military precision. Yet even in this new world of discipline and law, the old instinct for purity endures. Shogun Iemitsu, grandson of the founder Tokugawa Ieyasu, believes that peace depends on bloodlines as tight as his fortress walls. He binds his relatives and most loyal vassals through carefully arranged marriages, linking the three great collateral families, Owari, Ki, and Mito, in a chain of loyalty that no outsider can break. Each match is vetted like a diplomatic treaty, every dowry negotiated as though it were the price of peace. Edo Castle is a city unto itself. Within its gates are gardens of stone and moss, silent corridors of cedar, and ponds reflecting the gray sky. The air smells of ink and tea and damp paper. Meetings take place in rooms where no one sits higher than the shogun, yet everyone measures distance and posture with mathematical care. The women of the ruling families are educated in poetry and politics alike, taught to smile with restraint and listen without revealing a thought. To be born into privilege is to inherit invisible duties, silence, obedience, and vigilance. The result is astonishing stability. For 2 centuries, Japan knows no civil war. But under the calm, the same stillness that haunted Heian Kyoto begins to take hold. Letters from minor courtiers describe the atmosphere. "We live among mirrors," one writes. Every gesture reflects another. Every word is rehearsed. Festivals and banquets continue, but conversation feels hollow. The Tokugawa peace, like the Fujiwara harmony, demands uniformity. Even affection becomes ceremonial, expressed in perfectly measured syllables. By the 18th century, the symmetry that once defined the shogunate begins to feel like suffocation. Shogun Ieyasu, inheriting both authority and anxiety, marries Princess Fusako, another product of intertwined bloodlines. Their wedding parade winds through Edo's streets, watched by crowds of merchants and samurai. Drums thunder, golden banners shimmer, the people cheer the spectacle of permanence. Yet, behind the castle gates, the mood is fragile. Physicians whisper about the frailty of heirs, astrologers warn of omens, and scholars note the lack of fresh alliances. The genealogies that once ensured unity now strangle choice. Still, the rituals continue. Processions, purification rites, endless layers of ceremony, each meant to affirm strength, each silently confessing fear. The palace smells of incense and camphor. The courtiers' laughter at banquets rings polite but hollow. Even the architecture seems weary, its vast halls echoing with too much order. Beyond those walls, however, the world is awakening. Merchants thrive, printing presses hum, and new schools of thought challenge the old doctrines. The contrast is striking. Outside, motion and invention. Inside, stillness and repetition. The Tokugawa believed they had perfected stability, yet by denying change, they built fragility instead. When the 19th century arrives, the illusion of isolation can no longer hold. The horizon darkens with the shapes of Western ships. Their cannons glint beneath the sun, their smoke rises like storm clouds over Edo Bay. Within Kyoto's palace, Emperor Komei clings to the faith of his ancestors. To him, the divine bloodline is Japan's last defense against corruption. He forbids marriages outside the narrow circle of nobility, convinced that purity will summon protection from the gods. His ministers nod, unwilling to contradict. But even the incense that burns day and night cannot hide the scent of fear. Illness sweeps through the capital. Courtiers blame foreign air, impure customs, or divine displeasure, anything but the system itself. The palace becomes a world of murmured prayers and locked doors. When Komei dies, his death is treated as a national tragedy, but privately, many see it as the end of an age. His son, the young Emperor Meiji, inherits not just a throne, but a suffocating legacy. Meiji looks upon the ancient rituals with reverence and frustration. He knows Japan stands at a crossroads, open and survive, or close and crumble. His decision is revolutionary. He reforms the court, modernizes its laws, and, symbolically but powerfully, chooses a marriage that widens the circle. The new empress represents education, adaptation, and the future. Under Meiji, Japan steps into the modern world, shedding the armor of divine isolation. The transition is turbulent, but it saves the monarchy itself. The old palaces remain, silent witnesses to centuries of strategy disguised as sanctity. Their walls still smell faintly of incense. Their gardens bloom with the same irises and pines that once shaded emperors who never saw beyond their gates. In those quiet spaces, the echo of 1,000 ceremonies lingers, a reminder that purity without renewal leads only to decay. Power always begins with a boundary, and it always ends when that boundary becomes a wall. For almost a millennium, Japan's rulers believed that perfection could be preserved by exclusion. The Fujiwara sought mastery through kinship and created dependency. The Tokugawa sought harmony through order and produced stagnation. Each generation defined purity as strength, but purity without exchange is a kind of death. Today, the chrysanthemum throne still stands, its crest of 16 petals glowing on banners and coins, but its meaning has changed. It no longer signifies separation from the world. It represents endurance through adaptation. The imperial family remains, not because it sealed itself away, but because it finally opened its doors. Walk through Kyoto today, and you can still sense the layers of that history. The streets curve around ancient walls. The faint clang of temple bells drifts through the dusk. In the imperial palace gardens, gravel paths crunch beneath the feet of visitors who have no idea that every stone once measured the distance between power and fear. The scent of pine and rain lingers in the air. Somewhere, a nightingale floor creaks, the same sound that once warned courtiers of intruders. Now it sings for tourists, a reminder that nothing, not even silence, can remain pure forever. The story of Japan's royal purity is not one of divine perfection. It is a story of adaptation, of a nation learning that to preserve itself it must change. From the moonlit halls of Heian to the iron discipline of Edo, Each attempt to trap purity only proved how fragile power becomes when it fears the world beyond its walls. In the end, it wasn't blood that kept Japan alive. It was the courage to let the old blood breathe.